I'm with Ken Weeks, the Chief Information Security Officer for the state of New Hampshire. Ken, great to catch up again. Thanks for taking the time to join me.
Hey, pleasure to join you again.
So, we've heard a lot so far around is cyber harmonization. And one of the big things around cyber harmonization is within the critical infrastructure sector. And that's where I'm going to start. New Hampshire is really taking a stronger focus on how to improve the cybersecurity of critical infrastructure. Walk me through some of those initiatives that you have ongoing and why now versus, last month, last week, last year.
Sure. I think it's an issue that's really just starting to come to the front of most people's minds. For years and years, people like me, CISOs and information security officers and agencies, we were worried about, does your email work, right? Does this application that a citizen uses to get benefits work? And what we've come to realize is that some of our most vulnerable systems are in critical infrastructure, and especially in community drinking water systems and wastewater systems. Some of these systems are very small. They may only serve, 60 customers. Some serve thousands of customers, but over time, there has been no attention paid whatsoever to the security of these. And so the example that I'll give you is we partnered with Rick Rossi, who is our CISA advisor for New Hampshire. And he's gone around and done a lot of assessments at the request of our Commissioner of Environmental Services. And what we found was we needed a whole new expression to describe the state of these drinking water systems. And it's pretty simple, but it turns out this system is bad even for a drinking water system, right? So it's all really bad. Some are terrible. In most cases, the technology stack in between the SCADA control box that actually starts pumps, opens and closes valves, there wasn't even a firewall there. So the water system operator would literally use his personal iPhone, go to that box, do whatever he needed to do, and then, I can't make this up, would literally go back to cutting the grass or painting the fence or whatever his other duties were. And so these are a bunch of hardworking, good Granite Staters, but cybersecurity isn't their thing. So we documented it, what was needed, worked with a nonprofit that we've stood up in New Hampshire called the Overwatch Foundation to develop a tech stack that would at least secure these systems from the internet to the SCADA control box. We used all StateRAMP equipment and services to do this and leverage statewide contracts so that we could do it at a efficient cost point. Then what happens is we actually go out and fix the problem. We don't just admire the problem, but Overwatch sends engineers and technicians out to install it. They train these water operators, and then the water system commits to, after 3 years, they'll put it in their rates to maintain software and replace hardware as required.
How surprising was that to you that the water systems, as you said, are even bad for water systems? Because there's so much discussion has been ongoing around cybersecurity over the last 3, 5, 7, 10 years. The data breaches, the ransomware attacks. Like, you'd think folks would be like, well, we really should do something about this by now.
Yeah, and I think that nobody ever thought about it because every time you turn on your faucet, water comes out, right? And so there hasn't been that good crisis that's brought this to everyone's awareness, right? And I say that, and I'm smiling while I say it, but the spirit that it's offered. But I think we've made people aware of that now through the outreach, through the assessments. We not only talk to the owners, operators of the water systems, but then both the elected officials and, for example, the town administrator that's in that town. So awareness has gone up, and we've used a program that we have called the Municipal Cyber Defense Program that's run by a private organization, and they go out, hands-on training for SCADA operators, seminar-type training for elected officials as well as town employees, and teach them what's important about cybersecurity, what things to budget for, what things to not worry about, so that it can be sustained. And I think through the awareness campaign, as well as actually delivering real solutions and outcomes, we've made tremendous progress.
I want to talk more about the MCDP, but before I do that, What's the reaction been from the town administrators, from the water system owner operators? Or was it, yeah, I know we should have done that, or why do we need to do that? Which side of the spectrum was it on, or in the middle?
It's a great question. Most of the time it was, what are you talking about? Right? It works. It just works.
It just works.
It just works.
Until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't, right? And we haven't had that until it doesn't moment.
Yeah.
And so they didn't even understand that securing that, they didn't even understand that it was at risk, right? Let alone that there was a need to secure it. And in fairness, I don't know how to read a water quality report either. So if you gave me that printout of all those numbers, I wouldn't know if it was good, bad, or how to fix it, right? So fair's fair, we need to apply that expertise in an area that doesn't have it.
This is, how big of a lift has this been from your perspective as CISO? What does it require you to do from the state level to say, is it more education training? Is it funding? What was your role?
So it's been a variety of those things. So one of my big roles in the job as the CISO is I go out and I grab federal funding and I launder it through the state to get it down to organizations and locals and create real outcomes, right? So it's been grant funding that's worked on these programs. It's been a lot of coordination with our Department of Environmental Services, who really has the authority and regulatory responsibilities over these water systems. And so they've applied a lot of funding, both one-time funding from the federal government as well as the New Hampshire state revolving fund for both water and wastewater projects. They're committed to the long term. We're fortunate in the fact that our Commissioner of Environmental Services is also the governor's cyber advisor, because he came through the Air National Guard and the United States Air Force, and he also sits on Jen's advisory board at CISA.
Okay.
So we have an environmental guy who knows cyber, and that's been a big enabler to help us get this program off the ground.
Let's talk about the municipal cyber defense program. What you mentioned, drinking water, mentioned wastewater. What else are they part of? What else are they helping kind of advocate for better cyber protections?
No, thanks. That's a great question. Thanks for asking it. Our municipal cyber defense program really leverages yet another public-private partnership. Because we're small, we have to do that. We're fortunate in the state that we have a single risk pool for 96% of the localities and the K through 12s. And so we decided we needed to amp that program up, but not do anything that was duplicative. We didn't want to do anything that Primex already did. Adam Group, who's their cyber first responders, are very familiar with all the K through 12s. They know them, they have trust relationships. And so we created training programs, cybersecurity awareness based on role. All of the services delivered by the Municipal Cyber Defense Program depend on what kind of entity you are, what your mission is, what your maturity is, and how big you are. And so it allowed us to get to our most vulnerable communities, most vulnerable entities, give them training, do configuration quality checks on their IT environment, correct them right while they're sitting there, and make them more secure. And so the trust relationships that happen across the state enable this, and federal funds through the state local cybersecurity grant program are what's going to fund our municipal cyber defense program for the next 4 years.
That realization that, hey, we can tell you to do something, do better cyber, but until we help you pay for it, I think that's a realization that we're starting to see. You heard someone from the White House speak at the StateRAMP event where he talked about, hey, we want better healthcare cyber, but at the same time, we also ask for money to help fund that, because we can't tell you to do something and then cut you off because you didn't do it. Is that also been a realization that you all have made within New Hampshire to say, hey, we've got to get the money to help these water or other critical infrastructure providers?
It absolutely is. And like, I've been in my job for just over 2 years now. And the very first event that I went to for the municipal chief technologic officers to get to know them, right? A lady who was the CTO in a town, medium-sized town in New Hampshire said, hey, Ken, we don't need you to tell us what to do. We need help doing it. And I took that to heart, and I think that was the first blinding flash of the obvious, that it wasn't about what, but it was about actually putting real solutions on the ground and help, because nobody has enough staff to do all of these things, and so any little bit really lifts everybody up.
As you are making progress, how are you measuring it, right? Because cybersecurity, one of the things we've always heard, and you know this probably better than I do, is you can't measure the negative. Well, because we invested this money, put this new capability in, we didn't get attacked. Well, how do you know that? Well, we didn't get attacked, yeah, but how do you know you would have? What are your measurements, or what are your metrics?
So really, we look at it and try to think about it in broad brush quantifications of risk, right? And so there's not going to be a cause and effect, but we know that we reduce risk by some amount if there's a firewall in between the internet and the SCADA control box, right? I can't tell you exactly what that risk reduction is, and honestly,
Not sure anyone can.
I'm not sure anyone can, and I'm not sure that there's really any value in that.
Yeah.
This will make a lot of people's ears twitch, but I guess it's my time in the Navy. I lead the outcomes rather than manage the metrics. So I'm probably the exact wrong person to ask about what metrics I use.
At the same time, you know it's making a difference because you've seen the critical infrastructure get attacked. Right. I know folks like to bring up Colonial Pipeline, but someone wants, for whatever reason, New Hampshire can be a target. I mean, are you seeing bigger threats, more targets? Is your concerns higher as the CISO?
They are higher, and I think it's that realization that we're trying to get ahead of the problem. So rather than having a community that we're the United States of America, we don't carry water from the river, right? We have drinking water systems, and so what we're really trying to do is ensure that all of those residents in New Hampshire, visitors there that have vacation homes, whatever it might be, have clean, safe drinking water that works. In addition to the whole regulatory piece about it being clean and healthy. So I think that the holistic approach to that is what's going to carry the day in New Hampshire, and maybe some others can benefit from that experience as well.
Yeah. And actually, that's a great way. In the last few minutes we have together, how are you taking those lessons learned that you've had and sharing them with Vermont or Maine or other states across the country?
Yeah, and so I think it's at events like this, at this StateRAMP event, at the NASCIO events, at the National Governors Association events. There's a wide variety of forums, and I get asked to speak on panels, and sometimes regardless of the question that I'm asked, I make sure that this gets woven in to just try and increase awareness across the country.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of telling the story, getting people to ask you questions, and then you can kind of, hey, can I call you? Can we have a meeting?
Exactly.
Explain to me how you did this in a lot more detail, but just that first step. Ken, I've really much appreciated our time, so let me thank my guest. Ken Weeks is the New Hampshire State Chief Information Security Officer.
Thank you very much.
CISOs.